What's up, Facebook? What's up, Instagram? I always have to give Facebook time. It takes forever for it to calibrate. So, anyways, I know I'm going a little late tonight, but you know, a lot of Americans are still attached to their football, so it's best to go live after things like that. So, we're going live. And so yeah, man, it's a lot harder. It's a lot harder to sit back and say or not say, "I told you so." Oh, where we go one, we go all. I remember a couple years ago, all these podcasts I was going on were saying, "Oh, we got to show compassion. We have to be the support for these people out there, and you got to show compassion. And oh boy, you can't be all haughty-taughty and braggadocious. I told you so." And I'm like, no, you can't be. If that's how you feel, but for me, I'm always gonna remember how I was treated during 2020. When I told people that I know for fact who have died already. Nobody's exempt. I know people who died because of the jab. So, you know, I'm always going to remember that. And knowing when you have a good heart and you know beyond of a shadow of a doubt, not just because you have a good heart, and not because, oh, you're a researcher, you study a little bit. Some of us were tasked for this. Some of us are on the front of this, well on the front, long before you ever heard about us. We already knew. We already knew certain things, whether it be skill sets and or, you know, things you did in your, you know, what they call your previous life after you get this platform. You know, I've been on both sides of the fence, even as a country music artist. I know what it was like before people followed you and all these other things. Like, I know what it's like to be on that side of the fence. But, you know, I didn't just dream this stuff overnight. And you got to be careful who you follow to this day. There's a lot of regurgitators right now who are looking the part. You know, got a lot of pretty boys out there. You got some dudes that are all muscled up. Now they're trying to act like they knew the whole time. You got to be careful, ladies and gentlemen. This is the vulnerable time for real. This is where it's really vulnerable, because a lot of you have seen that some of us knew. But now a lot of them are going to start blending in. So I'm going to remind you of a quote by Mark Twain. It says, "In the beginning of change, the patriot is scarce." All right. I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it word for word. Mark Twain. In the beginning, I've got it in my books, but I'm going to read it word for word because I always paraphrase it. "In the beginning of change, the patriot is a scarce man, and brave, and hated, and scorned. When his cause succeeds, the timid join him, for then it costs nothing to be a patriot." All right. And I had a dear sweet person today messaging me on my Instagram. And they were saying, you know, you and President Trump have taken a lot of hate. And I said, well, first off, I don't put myself in his category whatsoever. But the man has taken a ton of ridicule, mockery, hatred from people who don't even realize what they're defending. The very thing that a lot of Americans are defending are corruption. And so, you know, the cool thing about for me is this is once I realized this is what God had tasked me to do, and a few other people via confirmation, the resistance and hatred part's easy. Now the stupidity part is the part that you're like, laws and orders, and you're trying to steal a federal trademark. Make that make sense. So some stuff you do have to address and go after. It's kind of like setting a tone kind of deal. But my whole goal and objective now that we're post January the 20th, 2025 is to make sure all Americans realize what President Donald John Trump sacrificed for you. This man sacrificed. He knew the beginning, he knew the middle, and he knows the end. And we have a lot of Americans who are still run of the mill, and that's okay, because unless the Americans have the tools to be successful and to study what is in place, what's invoked by laws and orders, then they're not going to know. So that's where you, the patriot, still has a role to play yourself, because unless my videos and my book are reaching those people, they have no other reason to look around and go, whoa, what did I miss? But it is genius and brilliant when you realize what you're watching. And I made a few notes just for this week, what you witnessed from Monday to present day. That is validation. All it is a salute of validity. It validates my book, A Million Ways to Tulsa and Back, and you can have all the regurgitators in the world, but there's only one book that explains that right there, 45-47. That's a special operation, all of it. We're not done just because we're past the dash portion. We're not done. This is an operation. Whole thing's an operation. And it's unfortunate that some people just don't want to believe that. And then we got a lot of patriots who are probably sitting in their lazy boy recliners right now going, oh, finally, President Trump's back. You can't have that attitude either. That's what got us here. That's what got us in this, needing this kind of operation. Now, another thing I was explaining to an acquaintance earlier is how they couldn't dump all this out on the American people at one time. There were so many things that needed cleaned out that, one, it wasn't going to take 4 years, 8 years. It was going to require a lot of years. Plus, once you clean that out and then you show that to the American public, if you dumped all this at one time to the American public, one, have never heard of most of this stuff. Two, would they believe that it was real or not, even when you have substantial evidence that it was most certainly real? Three, when they clean it out, you present the evidence. How many people are going to appreciate that from the true factor of appreciation? Some of you would, no doubt. But would the majority of Americans, no matter what side of the aisle they were on before or after, would they appreciate it from the standpoint of future respect? Not respect like these people on social media have butchered that word. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, would you respect it to where you would pick up your slack wherever you've been slacking in your life? Where would you pick up? Would you pick up the slack? And would you start holding your congressmen and women, your local councilmen, etc.? Would you hold them responsible? The accountability and responsibility. Would you even know how to do that? Some of you would. But a lot of people wouldn't. People would go right back to the lazy boy, kick it back, go, woo, I'm so glad there are people like President Trump and Derek Jonhson and so-and-so and so-and-so that they want to do this. Woo, I don't know how they do it. We have too many of those in our nation. That is what got us in this spot. All right. I don't have to preach anymore, because most of you following me are, you're awesome followers, you're awesome patriots. Even if you struggle, doesn't matter. The ones that I have on my pages are trying. Now over here on Instagram, let me address Instagram really quick. A lot of you on Instagram that follow me, I don't post on Instagram. I do these videos, but I don't put up posts on Instagram. So a lot of you are not getting a lot of my material because you don't follow my other social media. All right, that's a big issue. I've tried. The only thing I had left over from my music career was Instagram that didn't get deleted. Facebook deleted my first profile I ever had because it was 17 years old. Go figure. All right, 17-year-old profile, they deleted it. All right. TikTok's deleted me, I don't know how many times. I haven't even tried to remake a new TikTok because I really don't care, to be honest with you. I don't want to be on social media that bad. It's like people who have Rolexes. I don't have a Rolex at all. I have like cheap watches because I don't want to tell time that bad. All right, that's what I tell people. People say, it's a cheap watch. I'm like, I don't want to tell time that bad, so I don't really care, you know. So little things like that. So my social media, Instagram, you got to go find all my social media links. So LINK, Linktree, LINKTR.ee/1776nation. So all my accounts will pull up. I still have my TikTok attached to that, the last one they deleted, because there's so many fake accounts out there. I mean, there are. If I can make a dime for every fake account that's out there with my name and image and likeness and brand, I'd have a lot of dimes. I'd have a march of dimes. So, you got to find the right pages, the correct pages. I don't talk about QFS in your wallet, nothing like that. So anybody who messaged you about that, it's not me. All right. So, Monday. Woo! Can you believe that you're almost a week past the day that you were waiting for? Look how fast that went by. Look how fast November the 5th went by. Think how long it's been since Christmas. Boy, when you're over 40 years old, how quick does time go by? Oh, it goes by quick, don't it? I mean, when I was a kid, I used to think it would take forever to get to Christmas. I remember my mama always saying, just wait till Christmas. It's right around the corner. And I done figured out how long a corner was. I'm like, this corner is a pretty long time period. Can we not work with corners? Can we work with something different? Because the corner is too. Every time you say corner, that means a long time off. All right. So look how fast November the 5th went by for Patriots. Look how fast Christmas went by. And look how fast this week has gone by. And look at all of what President Trump has done in 1 week's time. Now, that is my subject tonight. I'm still harping on, once again, this is a full-blown operation. And I'm going to tell you a quick story because I want to honor the Marine Corps again because they've been tasked on something they're doing right now. And I've got a friend that texts me just about every day who's Marine Corps, and her daughter just completed Marine Corps basic training not too long ago. So congrats on that. Hoorah, I'll give you all hoorah, even though I'm a hooah, but I'll give you an hoorah out there. But so this is why I tell people, look, if you got a calling, follow God first. Follow God first. Now, I know a lot of people say that with their mouth a lot of times, but you can tell the difference most of the time. Because if you have God in your life the right way, then you're going to be able to see God in other people's lives the right way. And then your discernment will kick in. But if you don't have God the right way, you're not going to be able to see if someone else has God the right way. That's how that works. All right. So, before I went viral in June 2022, I went viral August 24, 2022, in a pickup truck, old Ford pickup truck, middle of nowhere. The phone barely works to this day there. The reception, if you pull over in the same spot, my phone barely works. You noticed that probably this past year when I did a anniversary video there, my video kept going in and out. Go figure. For an hour and a half, it never went out August 24, 2022. Not one time did it glitch, think about glitching, or anything. That's how God works. All right. So before that, see, a lot of people don't know what my life looked like before that. My life wasn't bad. Nothing crazy. I spent my whole life chasing Billboard country music. And Billboard was a big deal first off, from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. Billboard in the early 2000s, like if you were in the top 40 on Billboard and you had a hit song, You had a lifelong career, even with just a couple of songs. When I had my 2 Billboard hits, country music fans are the most controlled people on the planet. They're worse than politics. And they don't want to hear it, but they are. But when I finally had my 2 billboards, Billboard don't mean a thing to fans out there. All they care about is social media and what social media tells them via the record labels, the major labels that tell them what to like. All right. So naturally, here I was. I spent my whole life. My grandfather was boarding mates. They called them boarding mates back in the 40s, but roommates today. With Hank Williams Sr., he played on the same circuits with Red Foley and Hank Lachlan, all those guys back in the 40s and the 50s, Bob Wills, etc. You know, and I grew up a connoisseur of songwriting, the producers, the backside that no one really knew about, not anyone really studied a whole lot. And I mean, I really hit this real hard spot in my life because country music fans anytime you try to send them a message about, hey, go check this song out, I've never heard of you before. Well, that's the whole point, you idiot. All right, so I encountered that a lot. So you start building up. You get animosity and all kinds of other things because you're like, what in the world? Major record labels. I've been in and out of major record label meetings way back. Then I connected all the dots. And all the dots were aligning to going, oh my God, I've wasted my whole life on a rigged system. Rigged and very, very political, but very, very corrupt. And so I started doing what some people do. A lot of you have been there in your life before where you do the inner search. Okay, God, what now? What now? My whole life has been country music. And now I know the secrets. I have Billboard hits without a major record label. I started reaching inward. And boy, before I found God, I was cussing God. I blamed God and I cussed God for all he was worth. That's why I reference the Forrest Gump movie all the time when Lieutenant Dan was on the top of the ship and he was yelling and cussing at God. That was me. I yelled and cussed and I blamed God. And all I had to do was just flip my script just a little bit. But I didn't do that. And I had a bad ATV accident in November 2021 that made me get in a position like Lieutenant Dan where it wasn't bad, where it had my life hanging in the sense of physically, in a different metaphor. It made me call out to God. I was on this cliff and the cliff was going to give way. I had a choice to make. I had to call out to God. That's how God works. Now, I hope you never have to experience that in your life where you need to call out to God that way. But it's what worked for me. I had to call out to God. And from November the 8th, when I became a Christian, by definition, still not perfect, but when I flipped my script and I started putting wholesome things in my life like reading, studying, and not worrying about what social media did and who was following me and that kind of stuff. When I put away all the stuff, the social media, and when I quit worrying about who was following me, and I started reading my Bible daily for the right reasons, putting it right here for the right reasons, when I started that, I already had the documents written. That's what's crazy about all that stuff was already written. When I started putting God first, in front of me, God don't care how fast you run, ladies and gentlemen. He don't even care if you run. As long as he's in front of you. He don't care how many F-bombs you accidentally do on your way to trying to do better. God don't care. As long as he's in front of you, not going, hey, how am I doing? Don't do that. once you flip your script in life, June 2022, I had already been going to church and reading and studying and not worrying about what the world thought and what the world was doing. A Marine Corps veteran of 17 years, you can't make this up, 17 years, those of you patriots especially that know the significance in number 17. My cousin, who's a preacher, knew that he was a veteran and knew that he had ranked up while he was in service years ago. They sat me with him on purpose at a church. After the church, there were about 100 people in the room. He grilled me on the most difficult military law and order questions that a general could have. And I answered every one of them just that quick. And then the stuff that didn't require a question and answer, Q&A, when I could rattle on him but slow and lay out what was already had been done at that point from 2017 to 2022, he was like, I kid you not, there's witnesses. He balled his fist up and he flexed his muscles just like that. And he just did. It's happening! It's happening! Just like that. He was talking about what my grandfathers talked about and my great uncles, who are all veterans, World War II and Korea, most of them. Every one of them talked about what President Trump said on the campaign trail in 2016 when Jeb Bush asked him a question, but it ended up being 3 questions. Who's going to vote for you? Who's going to support you? And who's going to back you? President Trump said, that's a loaded question. If the moderator would give me time, I'll answer that. I'm paraphrasing just slightly, but it's along those lines. One, the American people are going to vote for me because they're tired of BS politicians like you. Every single one of you get on this stage and you tell the American public what they want to hear and you never back it up. I'm a businessman, not a politician. I will win the people over by the economy because that's what affects them the most first. 2, we're never going to voice to the public what goes on with our military ever again. Because if you find out, guess who else finds out? And who's going to back me? Who's going to support me? I have 200 generals backing me right now and more to come. 200 generals, quote, was what they called a conspiracy theory for years. That, 200 generals said they were going to take this country over and it hasn't happened yet. Yet. Because it's already happened, baby. It's already happened. It's happening. It's happening. That was an 84-year-old Marine Corps veteran in 2022. And he told me that night, son, I want you to put me on your documents. Because at that time, no one knew about me. I had maybe 10 people signed up on Google Drive where you can add someone to like the Google Drive and they could read it. They could access it. You give them either access or editor or comment, view, like that. I added him. 2 weeks later, I was sitting with him again at the same place. All right, and what's cool about this is really cool. You can't make this stuff up. My 7th great-grandfather, 7, founded, named, and discovered Beulah Battery, Alabama. Beulah Battery is what it looks like on, but we pronounce it Beulah Battery. Beulah Battery, though. Watch Forrest Gump. Where is Bubba Gump Shrimp Company based out of? Beulah Battery, Alabama is what they pronounce it on the movie, but it's actually Beulah Battery. My 7th great-grandfather founded, named, and discovered Beulah Battery. That's where we were sitting both nights when he said it's happening. So there's your Forrest Gump. top of the ship. Circle back around the 2 weeks after that. I sat down with him again after he had gone through and read all those documents. The one thing he said to me was this. He said, son, I want you to do one thing for me. One thing and one thing only. He said, son, you have everything you need. Everything. But one thing. He said, now I know, from what I know of your family, I know you have God right here. But you don't have him in your documents. At the very front of your documents, you say it's a monumental and historical operation. Son, I want you to add the word biblical before that monumental and historical. Add the word biblical and God's going to bless you. God's going to take these documents and I have a feeling that he's going to bless you somehow, some way. That was June 28th, 2022. June, July, August. August 24th, 2022. That video that has yet to get service to this day went globally viral in a old beat up Ford pickup that I still have. Ford F-150. Alright. So, all you Chevy and Mopar people, if there's anything you can find good out of a Ford, I think you probably found it. Alright, so. Now. Nothing I do, though, takes precedent over God, Jesus Christ, my family, and President Donald John Trump. All in that order. However, when I raised my right hand and went in the military, I took an oath with Title 10, Section 502, to the full extent of when it says, I, Derek Jonhson, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. Now, we have a lot of people in this nation who have taken that same oath, but a lot of them took the oath just to get into the military. Did they take the oath by what the words actually meant, what it stands for, and what you're taking the oath for? Huge difference. Very huge. Now, only the veterans out there that are veterans know what they serve for. But most veterans will come around when they're presented with laws and orders. So let's get rolling here. President Donald John Trump knew exactly what he was asked to do. And he told every single one of you on Monday at the Capital One Arena, you have to listen to the man. I tell everybody all the time, you cannot support this man wholeheartedly and truly if you don't listen to him. You cannot support him if you don't listen to him. Women, where you at, ladies? Ladies, where are y'all? All of you patriots, women, y'all have been some amazing patriots. Where you at, ladies? How many times you got to tell your man to listen? How come there are viral videos all over the internet where a guy's making fun going, it's a questionnaire. Now, where did your wife say you gotta go this weekend? Whose wedding? And he goes, what wedding? Right? All right, ladies, where you at? How many times you got to tell a man to listen? Not here, but listen. Big difference. You can't support the man if you don't listen to him. That's where a lot of patriots are struggling. There's still a lot of people who call themselves patriots, and they jump right off. They ride all into the, negative Nancy and Chicken Little. The world's falling on me because you don't listen. Don't claim to support the man. Oh, you can go down and vote for him. Yep, that's easy. Check. Yep, you can do that. You can be a Monday morning quarterback all you want. There's plenty of them out there. When your team is winning, you're the fan. But when they're losing, you put your little paper bag on and you don't want anybody talking to you about your team that's sucking it up right now. and the wheels on the bus go. All right. He told you Monday at the Capital One Arena that this was a political operation. He's already told you before it's military, but he's telling you an operation. So before we get really rolling good, let's just pretend we're playing a game of rummy or chess or Monopoly or checkers or whatever it is you want to play. But you're just sitting there shooting the breeze with your friend. Maybe you're drinking some wine, some Cabernet or whatever it is, you know, ladies, whatever y'all doing. But what guys, whatever, you're drinking a beer, whatever, whiskey on rocks, whatever. You know, and you're just shooting the breeze with each other. How often are the terms Western Hemisphere in your vocabulary? How often are the words occupied country in your vocabulary? How often are these terms that President Trump uses in your vocabulary? And then think of the average Republican and the average conservative. How many Republicans and conservatives have heard these terms? Just casually being, oh, hey, how's the Western Hemisphere treating you? I mean, little things like that. The terminology matters, and that's where we got a problem in America. It's because we have dummied down education in America. We've dummied it down. Look at what kids are studying in school today. All the kids can name all your top 25 country music artists. They can name the Kardashians. They can name the Kardashians' family. Only thing I know is the term Kardashian. That's it. They can name all the actors, all the TV stars, all of them. So our priorities have been backwards. President Trump told you Monday it's a political operation. Operation is not a term you use loosely. All right? Not with him. That's why you got to know him, study him, listen to him. Now, your average liberal out there think that, oh, that's just part of vocabulary and all that. Oh, yeah. Oh, Mr. White. Oh, Anglo-Saxon, tough guy. Right? Laws and orders run this nation. We are the government. So, therefore, we need to find what laws and orders work for us, the people, and abolish everything else, which is what you're witnessing. The IRS, etc., etc., etc. But he told you Monday, we've been in this operation for 9 years. But then he said, probably more like 20. Validation, it's all there if you'll listen. That's why I love that little viral video, that little Spanish kid. Listen, Linda. Linda, listen. A lot of you are Lindas out there. You're not caring anymore. A lot of you are Linda. You're not listening, Linda. Listen, Linda. A lot of you ain't listening. You're hearing, but you ain't listening. All right. So, January the 20th, this was so freaking awesome. Let's start with the fun stuff. And then once we hook your friends and family with the fun stuff, maybe they'll listen to this video and then they'll go check out all my other free videos. Imagine that. All right. You don't even have to buy my book. But it's the only book that explains the 45-47. It's the first and the only. Part 2 is available right now. 610 pages. Don't freak out. About 500 of those are pictures, chronological timeline of what everybody missed from 2015 to present day. Only about 107 pages of true reading and comprehending what special operations are. Clandestine operations, covert operations, subterranean warfare, irregular warfare, unconventional warfare, asymmetrical warfare. Not a lot of hard reading. It's not even hard either. I put it in a chronological order and I paired all of what took place with Title 10, Title 50 and those operations where the average person can comprehend it. But it will paint a beautiful picture of this right here being a special operation, which it is. A special operation spearhead. All right. So let's just look at what you witnessed Monday. All right. Monday. This is so awesome. All right. This is why all of the stuff that I was talking about, like a broken record, all of a sudden comes catching back up to you. A lot of you know it, but a lot of your friends and family looked at you and told you you were crazy for pointing out military customs and military regulations. Now, there's one thing I will never apologize for, is when someone disgraces the military just because, your daddy or your mama or your cousin or your son or your daughter serves. If they don't know military law, military orders, military regulations, military customs, military traditions, then what the hell are they serving for? You just can't, I don't even know how to describe that. They don't even flow together. That don't even work. If they don't know the very premise of the military. So, Monday was the first time. Facebook, Instagram, Rumble, when I put this on Rumble. Monday, January the 20th, 2025 was the first time that Biden and Kamala walked on a red carpet. And it was for President Trump's inauguration. The first red carpet rollout, high honor, royalty, for Biden was on President Trump's inauguration day. When he went to Saudi Arabia, it had a purple, which means generosity in Arab. But that wasn't him either. So, that's the hardest part, is explaining to people is what they witnessed in the past 4 years. But it's because you don't know what took place in President Trump's first 4 visual years. All right. Now, remember what put me on the map? What put me really, really hard on the map in my viral video was explaining how on January the 20th, 2021, Biden received a funeral service. But it wasn't just for Biden, it was for the monarchy. All right, when you realize what's all taking place with the world, then you'll realize that the monarchy has been dissolved. All right, the corporation, that's what they're doing, is dissolving the corporation. It takes time, though. Let it all play out. All right, so the cannon salutes. So on Monday, what shows you that this is still part of the operation is an operation. Wherever you are out there, whoever's listening, whether you didn't know this was an operation, special operation, or you do, Monday, everything was backwards for a purpose, to put emphasis, making it a focal point. All right? So the wreath laying ceremony, which is very sacred to all of us veterans, especially us veterans, the unknown soldier, the laying of the wreath of the unknown soldier, happened on Sunday, January the 19th. All right? And this is how you tell who also knows what's going on and who doesn't. There were a lot of podcasters out there saying that, the inauguration was moved indoors because of security reasons. If it was moved indoors because of security reasons, they wouldn't have put President Trump at Arlington on January the 19th. All right, now I know that the President Trump you're seeing is also a double. But for the people who don't know that, who still want to believe that and don't want to listen to special operations and straight up logic, etc., whatever, you're in trouble. But whatever. You don't put the real president out in a situation, period. And all of you with logic and common sense, you should appreciate that no matter what. All right? Because it don't matter at the end of the day. We have crazy idiots still in this nation who don't even identify as a terrorist. We just have some crazy people, loose screws, who can lose their mind just a snap of the finger. They don't have to be a designated terrorist to be crazy. All right? So, January the 19th, why would they put the wreath laying ceremony before the inauguration? You've never seen that in history. Ever. It was a focal point. It was to put emphasis because watch. Remember all my videos? All you got to do is go back and watch every video of mine. Every video where I talked about the cannons that Biden received. Never before in history have you ever seen the cannons at Arlington on January the 20th. Ever. That's what differentiated it. That's why I love using a troll every now and then, because some trolls actually prove the point, because trolls are just what they are. They're low IQ. They want to be the cool one in the comment box or whatever, but sometimes you take them and you make them an emphasis and you go, oh, thank you, troll, for being a troll, because look, you actually proved the point. So last year I had a troll who claimed to be an Army veteran. Go, I'm Army. They claim to be Army. They claim to be 20 plus years in, something like that. So they want to put an emphasis on, oh, I served longer than you. Oh, so because you serve longer, your IQ is automatically more sharp and higher than mine. Okay, so that's what we're going with. All right, so let's roll with that for a moment. This person said that, oh, I finally caught Derek Jonhson lying. Oh, I'm lying? Okay, so they say that the 3 cannons at Arlington are always there. Well, guess what? They are. They are always there because it is a ceremony. It's an event. All right? And yes, you have 3 cannons at Arlington. And any other time they do a funeral service at Arlington, there's 3 cannons. But thank you, troll. Thank you for proving the point, because the only cannons they showed all day long for, Joe, were the 3 cannons at Arlington. But also, the same day, when they showed President Trump riding off into the sunset like 95% of Republicans thought and believed, and conservatives, that's why President Trump picked on Republicans, they showed the 4 cannons 21-gun salute at Joint Base Andrews with President Trump. So you saw 2 different set of cannons on the same day. If you go back to Obama, Clinton, Bush Sr., Reagan, Ford, they don't show Carter's for whatever reason, which that's kind of hilarious for history's sake, because he was the sorriest president before Obama. All right. Biden wasn't real, so I'm not going to even say that because he's not real. All right. And then they have Nixon. You can go back and watch on YouTube. You can go pull up all of the inaugurations all the way back to Nixon, except for Carter. They don't show them. You can hear the cannons going off, but they don't ever show them for whatever crazy reason. But all you see are 4 cannons. That is a 21-gun salute by definition. 4 cannons. The first time in history they've shown 2 different cannons, and the first time in history they have shown the cannons at Arlington was with Joe. 3 cannons. All you do is go to Google, Arlington National Cemetery .mil, enter. Well, take that back. Type that in, comma, go ahead and type out 21-gun salute. That way to pull up the direct link to the page. Click on that. Arlington National Cemetery.mil. The 21-gun salute is not to be confused with the 3-volley salute seen or heard at Arlington. The 3-volley salute is a military honors funeral. It don't get any more simple than that. And this Monday, there was not a wreath laying ceremony. After the president swears in and does that, then they swear in and he does the review of the troops, and then he walks out, gets in the beast, and rides over to Arlington National Cemetery. No, that was done on Sunday, and it brings a focal point to you for one reason. What did they show you at the wreath laying ceremony? You didn't see the cannons. You didn't see 3 cannons at Arlington, even though they're always there, you dumb idiot troll. Thank you for proving my point. See how this is why that old saying, if you have nothing nice to say, you probably want to keep your freaking mouth shut, right? That low IQ is really showing on you, you 20-plus year veteran you. Woo! Thank you for your service. Unbelievable. See what happens when people open their big mouths and they don't really know? Because Sunday you didn't see any cannons at Arlington. But then when President Trump raised that beautiful right hand that I've shaken quite a few times in my lifetime, oh, guess what happened? Uh-oh. Four ruffles, what they call ruffles and flourishes, four of those, and then immediately Hail to the Chief plays, and as soon, all of you musicians out there, all of you music teachers, all of you music people that love music, on the very first note of Hail to the Chief, guess what kicks off? Boom! And what does the camera do? Because they weren't outside, the camera has to go over to the cannons that were outside. What do you freaking see Monday, January the 20th, 2025, after 12:01 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the 20th Amendment, by definition, what do you see? 4 cannons, 21 rounds. So when people say, I can't listen to Derek Jonhson when he raises his voice, I'm sure there's some Karen in the comment box on Facebook saying that. Bye. I have a thing called a personality. I have a thing called passion. I have a thing called, you know what? I'm fighting for all of you out there who knew and saw the same things yourself, and your family calls you crazy. Your friends call you crazy. Military customs are not crazy. Military laws, military orders, military regulations, military customs, military traditions are not conspiracy theories. So anybody who says that again, you need something shoved so far up your you-know-what, and you need to sit on it and twist on it until it breaks off in you. All right? That's where we take offense as veterans who know what's going on, because the wreath laying ceremony is the unknown soldier. We honor an unknown name because of the sacrifice they made for you to say some stupid ass crap like that. Why do we even have the military if we're not going to have orders, laws, customs, traditions, regulations? Why do we have anything if we're not going to go by that? So that's how dumb and ignorant and low IQ people look when they want to argue simple things like that. And then it's also ignorant to sit and act like I'm not supposed to have a personality and be passionate about the very thing that you sign up for, you take an oath for. Because it all played out right in front of you. All played out right in front of you. And for those of you out there that's still struggling with your friends and your family, this is why I talk like this. These are the things we got to get right. We have to get it right. It's not about being right, but it's about getting it right. We have to get the basic, simple education solved. And when we have people who will argue with a point blank right here on paper, we got problems. So President Trump swears in at 12:01. It had just turned 12:02. But every president in history swore in anywhere from 12:01 to 12:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So it doesn't really matter that it's not on 12:01. So don't take that to whatever. It's always 12:01 to 12:05 is when they've timed it perfect. 20th Amendment. Guess when Biden swore in? 11:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Violation of the 20th. Even though that was all a play, not real, the last 4 years has been an operation. The Bible. Everybody freaked out over the Bible. Oh, President Trump's hands not on the Bible. What is up? Oh, God, New World Order. All this stuff. You should have been slapped 10 ways to Tulsa and back because you're not paying attention. The first time since JFK with the debate there wasn't an audience was way back in the 60s with JFK. What part of we're resetting everything, what part of President Trump signing an executive order to unleash all the JFK files, where have you been? Where you been? Woo! Listen, people. Commissioned officer. The commissioned officer that was present for President Trump's cannons on Monday, January 20th, 2025. Guess what it was? Commissioned officer. Guess what the headband was? I spy baby blue. It didn't sound anything like George Strait's Baby Blue, but I spy baby blue. The insignia on the headbands consistent with January the 20th, 2017 when those two military officers walked down behind President Trump. All those officers behind him, but there were two right there, January the 20th, 2017. Baby blue and gold, black and gold. Black and gold, Judge Advocate Generals. Baby blue and gold. Military intelligence. The only thing that was consistent around Joe Biden and Kamala the past 4 years, the only thing that was real and consistent, you saw those headbands and those insignia on soldiers. Even though the rest of their uniforms were jacked up, all around Biden and Kamala, Judge Advocate General insignia, military intelligence insignia, and one other they threw in there. It's two different words, but it's one. They're under one. Civil affairs and psychological operations. The commissioned officer present for the cannon salutes of President Trump on Monday, military intelligence headband. The guy who walked him around, the soldier who walked him around for the review of the troops, military intelligence headband. It's all there, right in front of you. Military intel. If you go back and look at Biden, even though 3 cannons is not a salute whatsoever, it's a military funeral, but still, Army Regulations 600-25, 2-3, cannon salutes. Very first line, there is to be a commissioned officer present for every cannon salute. Biden didn't have a commissioned officer present. Also, if you go back and watch the inauguration, you'll see Eric Trump, when they roll in, Eric Trump standing there just like this. His hands are just like that, very awkward in another way. His hands are up, and he's making this right here. Special operations. Immediately after 12:01 p.m., whitehouse.gov, boop, changed just like that. America's back. President Trump with that grin on his face like I got. America's back. Whitehouse.gov, all of a sudden, boop. Everything that Biden has done, quote unquote, when you go to the link to find it, it's not there anymore. Now, the executive orders that they made Biden do on the federalregister.gov, those are important for a reason. And we're going to get to that in a minute. All right. Then you saw President Trump board Air Force One, and it's what they call a VC-25. All right. Anytime the president is on any aircraft that's called Air Force One, it's supposed to fly with a call sign, though, of SAM. Anytime the president's somewhere, that's a presidential call sign, SAM, Special Air Mission. All right. President Trump didn't have Special Air Mission on Air Force One, flying to North Carolina and flying to California. But what differentiates that, hang tight. See, because most people out there, the negative Nancys and the Debbie Downers and all the others, the turd Teresas, all right, all of them out there would go straight to, oh, well, Biden didn't follow the Sam call sign and President Trump didn't follow, they must not follow the Sam call sign anymore. No, because you weren't paying attention if you thought that. Here's what happened. No time that they showed Biden anywhere. For the people that thinks he's real, he isn't. He was never president by laws and orders, by an operation. History's going to tell it. But right now, they're still in operation. Everything's still in operation. This proves it even more so. But no time they showed Biden in the VC 25, 28,000 or 29,000, no time did they ever show a doomsday plane accompanying the VC-25. And I showed a lot of you on, especially on Facebook, Instagram, y'all got to catch up. You got to go to my other pages. All right. But you on Facebook, Telegram, True Social, and my Twitter, my X, whatever you want to call it. No time. I showed you multiple times via the radar. It would show the VC-25 somewhere, and you'd see a doomsday plane somewhere over here. So if they can show the doomsday plane on radar and a Air Force One with Biden on it, if they can show them both on radar, there's no security protocol on that. There's supposed to be one doomsday plane, an E4, what they call an E4, E-4B, night watch. All right, it's a national command. It houses the president and the Secretary of Defense during any kind of nuclear situation. But it always accompanies the president and Air Force One. There's always a doomsday plane with it. Always. Anytime they show Biden, there was never one with it. Ever. And I showed multiple times when they'd have a VC-25 with Biden going somewhere, I would find, and there'd be 2 or 3 doomsday planes somewhere, nowhere near the Air Force One. So Monday, Tuesday, let's see, it was Tuesday, wasn't it? Or when was that? He went to North Carolina. Just a couple of days ago. Whatever day it was. Done lost track, so much has happened. But you saw Air Force One, no call sign, doomsday plane beside it. Then also there were a few C-32s. Sometimes they operate as an Air Force Two. Sometimes they don't. But there were 2 or 3 C-32s in the sky at the same time. All these at the same time, flying with the SAM call sign. Which is consistent with what I've been showing you with the laws and orders invoked that we're in a military government, military occupation, because all of your Department of Defense aircraft are flying with the SAM call signs. Today, January 26th, today, there was a small aircraft flying out of Miami with the SAM call sign. Not even a C-32. So that's consistent with the laws and orders still invoked, which we're going to get to in a minute here shortly. All right. So the SAM call sign is still on the DoD aircraft, but the differentiation was there was a doomsday plane accompanying President Trump right beside him all the way to California. Now, let's get to some press conferences. I don't have a lot of notes tonight, so this will be good for y'all, right? California press conference. This shows you the military operation still in place. I've been telling you over and over, this is not going to end right here from the standpoint of we're going back to the same bullcrap we had before all of this. It's not going to be that, but you still have to look at this ball cap like that. You got to put a parameter around that. This is a whole operation, this whole thing. 45-47, all of it's an operation. There's one way to prove it, wholeheartedly prove it, that you just can't argue. One are the cannons. So there's a few different ways actually. But I was showing this to someone earlier and I told them it's better to explain this live than it is to text it. The White House Military Office. I said, first off, Google White House Military Office and read what the WHMO does. The White House Military Office handles all of your Air Force One travel by the President and your Marine One, the helicopter, travel by the President, and then also the hospitality by the President when he's traveling. That's what the White House Military Office does. All right, and they do a few other things, but that's your main core, your visuals of what y'all thought you saw Biden doing. The people thinks he's real and was real. He's not. All right, but the White House Military Office are your Air Force One operations and your Marine One operations. So, bingo. When you go to Google, I don't like calling him Trump because I honor him. He is always going to be Commander-in-Chief Trump to me, wartime President Trump, Supreme Commander Trump. But for sake of, type in Trump, White House, Military Office, Archives. The first thing that pops up is your White House Military Office Wikipedia. It's got a few pictures. And the very other first thing that pops up, Obama, White House Military Office Archives. Where's President Trump's White House Military Office Archives? If President Trump was the 45th president and the dash didn't mean what it means, then there should be an archive page. There should be one there. It's not there. Should have been one. Wasn't one there. That proves alone. That one little thing proves alone. Amongst all the other things that I talk about. So the Army. So in California, we'll go to the California. So he's in California at this press conference. All right. A couple of weeks ago, whenever the fire broke out in California, about a day later, they said that the Navy were running missions in that. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why this matters. This is why military law matters, military orders, military regulations, military customs. But specifically this time around, military laws and orders. Anytime your irregular armed forces are involved, that requires Title 10, which is presidential authority. Title 10 is presidential. Title 50, Secretary of Defense, Department of Defense. It's really that simple. The Navy flying missions in California meant Title 10 was invoked. The only Title 10 orders in place to this day, the only Title 10 orders to federalize the National Guard to active duty and also bring in the regular armed forces, which are your regular Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, and also your Space Force. The only orders in place, March 27, 2020, Executive Order 13912, Title 10, Section 12302 invoked, and Executive Order 13919, April 30th, 2020. Title 10, Section 12304 invoked. Those are only Title 10s that have been invoked. And President Trump in California in the press conference said we're going to get the Army Corps of Engineers involved. Army Corps of Engineers, Title 10. President Trump don't even have to issue a new executive order invoking Title 10 because it's already been invoked. The new executive orders that he put into place on Monday, he ain't got to because they've already been invoked. It's already invoked in 2020. And that's why community notes on X, old school Twitter, it's dangerous. They're just like fact checkers. Those are lazy individual people. I put a post up a couple weeks ago. Community notes, these expired. They didn't expire. That's the wrong terminology. Executive orders don't expire. The only way an executive order goes away is by the Congress, if the Congress deems that order unconstitutional, or a president writes a new order for it that revokes it. That's how they go away. But they're forever archived. They're forever there for you to see. Even revocations. They're still there for you to see, where you can see what was revoked. All right. President Trump said in the conference, too, the press conference, he said, everybody I've talked to, talking about the people who lost their homes, he said everybody, and he put an emphasis on everyone. He said it two different ways, two or three. He said, everyone I've talked to said they're rebuilding back right here. Now that sounds like people who were told that we're about to have something take place here. We're going to need you to evacuate. He said, and also we're going to supply them where they can build back bigger and better. Weird. Who knew you could lose a shack and build a mansion after that? Who knew? Special operations. Don't even have to cough. Don't even have to cough that it's special operations. It's special operations. It's all outlined in laws and orders. And what Americans do is let their feelings get in the way and their emotions get in the way and tragedy and all this other stuff when they weren't even there. And they said that people died. How can you say this? Because you're still following mainstream media, what they tell you. Versus looking at what's in place and looking at all of the other great things that's taking place. And then you'll see that all of the other great things that's taking place, the decentralization of the banks, the global alliances, all these CEOs stepping down, all these CEOs getting fired, all these different people, all these congressmen and women disappearing, all these people, the swamp disappearing, the swamp being drained. When you see all of that, and then you go back to what little thing they told you, because they knew there's still normies having to watch TV. There's still normies out there because they're either refusing to listen to someone like me or you, or they just ain't found me or you yet. President Trump told everybody at Waco, Texas in 2023, we're going to tear down lots of bad and ugly buildings. We're going to build back freedom cities. Everyone's going to participate. We're going to tear down and get rid of ugly buildings. He didn't tell what kind of buildings. There goes those words again that people struggle with, terminology, like the word vaccine. All right, everybody freaks out when they hear the word vaccine. A vaccine is like the word automobile. It don't tell you who's the manufacturer. It don't tell you what brand it is or anything. It's just a big word for it. This is a cowboy hat. It don't tell you what brand it is. This is a buckle. It don't tell you what brand and company it is. This is a hoodie. It don't tell you what brand and company it is. All right, we'll hide it real quick. People struggle with the most simplest things. In North Carolina, before he went to California, he said, we're headed to California. I don't think we've seen anything quite like it. It's pretty bad. It's probably one of the worst things that we've seen ever. Looks like something hit it. But we won't say what that is. Oh, I thought, yes, sir. I thought it was just a wildfire. California has wildfires. Alabama, Mississippi, Florida have hurricanes. Tit for tat, right? Yeah, they're natural disasters. Tell me again, sir, what you just said. Looks like something hit it. You mean it wasn't just a wildfire like Colorado and California always have these wildfires? You tell me something hit it? What hit it, sir? I mean, that's the stuff that gets me. And I sat back today and I said, no, how can I do a podcast where I'm not sounding like I'm talking down to everybody? And I'm like, I can't. Because majority of the people out there still hear President Trump say, looks like something hit it, but we won't tell you what that was. And people will go, Derek Jonhson, you're so insensitive. You're such a pompous ass for talking like this. People are dying, Derek Jonhson. President Trump tells you millions of people have died in Ukraine and Russia. Where are the photos? Where? Where are they? See, they're testing out people who are still watching mainstream media to see where your IQ and where your level is. Have you ever thought that you're the guinea pig and you're the one that they're taking the test from, what you're still paying attention to and what you're believing? Because you're going to suck in the AI world. I'm going to tell you right now. Those of you who cannot grasp simplicity of laws and orders invoked and things you can actually look at here and then look at there, if you're still just going by hearsay, you're going to be disastrous in the AI world. You don't need to get on the internet and look at videos they're putting out. All right, because you're going to be thinking that someone's sitting there petting a great white shark and that the great white shark's like a golden lab puppy. They're sweet and innocent. They won't bite you. I mean, the AI is... There's some AI videos that get me. One got me the other night. It was someone who was skydiving and they didn't pull their chute in time and it looked real. But I just don't like skydiving. So That's what got me, was I'm like, pull the chute, pull the chute, pull the chute. It didn't matter if it was a cartoon. I'm like, pull the chute. They didn't pull it till they got, and it looked real. So people out there, you're going to struggle. And you're going to lose a lot of money because the scammers out there are going to get a hold of AI and they're going to get you. All right, now the fun part. This is the fun part. The executive orders that were put out Monday. One, I'm going to read them in order that I think they're the most awesome. One was designating cartels and other organizations as foreign terrorist organizations and specially designed global terrorists. All right. Specially designed. Well, listen to what that says. That's telling you that a certain entity of people specially designated these people in a design. Right? Specially designated global terrorists. It means they were designed to do this. The swamp. The swamp created this. Now, no, they didn't tip over certain things throughout history to where you go, oh, there's been 400 million children that's gone missing. No. They kept their little scales really tight like this, where you never saw all of the evil going on. And you never saw their kickbacks they were getting back here. That's why this stuff is difficult for believe to people, because the old Elvis song, seeing is believing. Well, some of the people out there, because they can't see it, they don't want to believe it. And you could be talking about children. We're talking about children now. We're talking about what the Bible talks about the most, about a child. And people don't want to believe that. We're in trouble. So that's why this had to be done this way. It had to be done to where they woke people up. They did a World War II tactic where they did a government in exile, where they pulled President Trump back here. They made Biden look like he did certain things where they could clean up everything. It was very important that President Trump did not start a foreign war whatsoever, because that was part of the swamp. So they had President Trump go in 4 years, clean out what he could. Had to do things lawfully, so they pulled him back lawfully. There's a way to do that lawfully to extend his power, make him a wartime president. Then make things go bad on Biden. But it didn't go bad on you. You made it through the 4 years. You ain't hurting. Some people died. Yeah, they did. But people die every day, and most people don't care about that. So there's certain ways, certain things, it depends on what we're talking about. They put him in. They made Biden, everything go. Now President Trump can go, well, Biden did this and Biden, and then they can go in and clean out this crap. And when it's cleaned out completely, when the swamp is completely drained, and I do this that way for a reason, when everything is clean, and then they reveal all this for history's sake, justice and history's sake, nobody's going to be able to point a finger, but also all of these people who took up for all these corrupt politicians, they better be hitting some holes. That's all I can say. You better be asking forgiveness or hitting some holes and dig just as far as you can dig in your hole. Because a lot of these liberals especially, but a lot of patriots have defended a lot of corrupt people. A lot of corrupt people. They didn't even know. So the cartels, it ties in because it talks about the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. That's Title 50. All right, Title 50 was already invoked, though, way back here. You can go see all that and all of my other videos. All right. This also ties in, though, to the transnational crime and the trafficking, Executive Order 13773 by President Trump. All right. That Ronald Reagan designed this task force in 1982. And Ronald Reagan talked about an invisible enemy in October 1982. President Trump in March 2020 talked about an invisible enemy. Invisible, invisible. See how those connect? It's the same task force. It's the same counter-narcotics operation and international trafficking. Same thing. All right? President Trump's Executive Order 13773 is on the page of the OCD ETF, the task force that Ronald Reagan established on the Department of Justice.gov. You can go read about that. All right. This executive order here ties in with that. It ties in with those operations. Title 50, like a broken record, Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550. Title 50 alone is your war and national defense. National. Imagine that. The United States of America. National. War and national defense. Your National Guard, your reserve components. National defense. Your regular forces when the Constitution and the Congress deems that. You don't have to have the Insurrection Act invoked. You don't have to do that. In the Joint Operations 3-57, civil and military operations, when Title 10 needs to be used, it has to be done by Congress or the Constitution. Guess what Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550 is? The Congress. That's the last amended section to the War Powers Act. So Title 50 is your War and National Defense. Chapter 33 of Title 50 is your War Powers Act. That's why that order is so important. That's why that is so important. I talk about it just about every podcast. It's so important. December the 20th, 2019 is when it was put in there. Then it has a clause with it. It says every 180, the first 180 days and every 180 days after December the 20th, 2019. Guess what happened in the first 180 days? Those executive orders that invoked, federalized the reserve components to active duty. Then you had Southern Command. Southern Command, Special Operations, Southern Command launched a counter-narcotics operation with 22 joint partners for counter-narcotics. That ties in with the trafficking, the Transnational Crimes Executive Order 13773, that ties in with these. Because of cartels and what all their operations are. They all tie in. All right. Now, we'll exit out of that one. Declaring a national emergency at the southern border of the United States. See, people hear that and they go, well, why did he just now declare a national emergency this week in 2025? If, and then you know what the if follows. Doesn't matter. President Trump, if President Trump was a former president, President Trump being at the border last February 29th, 2024, leap year, if President Trump was a former president, him being at the border with the governor of Texas and the adjutant general, that would have been election interference, ladies and gentlemen. Because if Biden was real and if Biden was president, President Trump being a former president, going down with the governor of Texas and the adjutant general, who's the commanding officer of all the armed forces of the state of Texas, would have been election interference all day long. President Trump was with Governor Abbott. Who'd you see at the inauguration? Who'd you see at the little speech after that? Governor Abbott. Of all people, Governor Abbott. Of all governors that were there, Governor Abbott. See, it's all an operation. And President Trump told you that day, it's a military operation. What you see here is a military operation. I said it twice. All right? That was a chain of command rank structure. First off, former presidents who were never in the military don't salute. Former presidents don't. They also don't walk in a fob, what we call a fob in the military, forward operating base. They don't walk in a fob and be at ease. Anytime a commander walks in a room for the first time of the day, a soldier yells, at ease! And he'll go, carry on. And then you can go back to doing what you're doing. He can walk in and out of there. They don't have to do that. They don't have to do that. Once they've seen that commander, they don't have to do that every time he walks in, out, in. You never get work done if he walked in, and you had to stop and go, at ease! And you had to stop what you're doing. Don't work that way. When President Trump walked in that fob in Texas last year, at ease! And then they didn't go back to carry on because they weren't given the order to carry on. They were given the order, which is a known thing. It's a known thing to do because they didn't say it wasn't given an order. When they went at ease and that commander didn't carry on, to say carry on, they knew to stand there at attention. Boom! President Trump walks in. Bingo! All right? And they were all in military bearing as what they were supposed to look like. That's very key for people, especially you civilians that don't know anything about that. You can't argue with that. Now, you can be someone that don't like it, but you can't argue with it. It's a military custom. And it showed you who your commander-in-chief is. Not was. Is. All right. So, something that simple. All right. So, then you had the state of Nebraska, who sent their National Guard the week before to Texas. And then the week after, you had the state of Arkansas send their National Guard to Texas. The only person who can federalize the National Guard reserve components to active duty is the President of the United States of America. That's Title 10. Sections 12301, 12302, 12304, 12406. All right? That's the only person who can do it. The only person who had done that were those two executive orders put into place. 2020. Those are the only ones in place. That was a chain of command rank structure they showed you that day. Because of the definition of the Adjutant General. The Adjutant General reports to the state chief executive, the governor, unless, key word, unless, circle, underline, bold, red, unless the National Guard had been federalized by Title 10. The only person who's federalized National Guard to active duty, the reserve component specifically, the reserves only serve a federal mission in the first place. They don't serve a dual mission like National Guard can, state and or federal. No, reserve components only serve one mission, federal only. So that's even more important. The only person who's done that was President Donald John Trump, and you witness a rank structure that day. All right. The other most awesome order that he put into place Monday, holding former government officials accountable for election interference. I don't think I've ever said those two words before, have I? Executive Order 13848. Have I ever mentioned that before? I love this stuff. An improper disclosure of sensitive government information. Oh, specialized compartmentalized information. Oh, so that little thing they call TSSCI, top secret, specialized compartmentalized information. Oh, yeah, that stuff, the highest level of clearance. Oh, okay, all right. In the closing weeks of 2020 presidential campaign, at least 51 former intelligence officials coordinated with the Biden campaign to issue a letter of discrediting the reporting that President Joseph R. Biden's son had abandoned his laptop at a computer repair business. Oh, you mean this little thing right here? Let's see what this is right here. Oh, what is this thing right here? Oh, 636 pages of filth and corruption of old Biden Jr. Oh, woo, look at that right there. 636 pages of phone calls, letters, texts, photos. Oh, you mean this was not a conspiracy theory? Us Republican patriots that are fully awake weren't crazy after all? You mean this book that you can buy online for $50? That shows you all of the filth. I do not recommend this being around children, by the way. There's a lot of filth and corruption in here. They do blotch it out, but they show enough for you to see that they didn't just make up all of this. It's like dropping the hat, drop the book, drop the mic, right? So we weren't crazy after all. Oh, so it wasn't a conspiracy theory, and oh, we're not just some awake people who believe in the white rabbit at the end of the tunnel. Even though the white rabbit is real. Now, I know that the 2020 election was not the focal point. This was about all election interference. This was about top to bottom election interference. Election interference doesn't just happen at the ballot box. That's where a lot of patriots dropped the box on the 2020 election. Focusing on 2020 alone was not the grand prize goal, ladies and gentlemen. The grand prize goal is to clean out all the federal government, get rid of the swamp, get rid of politics in government, get rid of all the propaganda, the drama, the lies, the misinformation, disinformation. All that was never supposed to be in politics. We're the government. We the people are the government. That's what the Declaration of Independence is all about. That's why it was funny on just on Monday. On Monday, they had a Democrat talking after President Trump, right? And she said, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The Constitution is so important. She said something like that. That's not the Constitution, ladies and gentlemen. That's the Declaration of Independence. What's funny, though, this is so awesome. It names all the 51 agents in this order, but specifically, it's so funny, you got to read this order. It says, to remedy these abuses of public trust, this order directs the revocation of any active or current security clearances held by the former intelligence officials who engaged in misleading and inappropriate political coordination with the 2020 Biden presidential campaign. And it goes semicolon, and number 2, John R. Bolton. This is so hilarious because you'll see in part 2 of my book, because this happened after the release of my first part 1, they made John Bolton get on CNN way back in February last year, February the 2nd or the 3rd, I believe it was, or maybe the 4th. But it was on CNN, and the one time reading fails you, when I tell people you got to read, the one time reading fails you, the headline said, can President Trump serve a second term with all these charges against him? Something like that. You got to listen to John Bolton. John Bolton is on CNN saying that the Constitution specifically bans a third term, but I'm pretty sure that President Trump will seek to amend the Constitution and able to serve a third term. John Bolton, to this day, you can go find this on CNN. Boom, there's John Bolton. And just the day before, I think it was January the 19th or the 18th, on Newsmax, they had John Bolton on there, and they showed a tweet by President Trump calling John Bolton dumb as a rock Bolton. And they asked him, what do you think about President Trump giving you a nickname and calling you a name as such? And he goes, well, I still feel the same way. He said that he specifically felt that Ronald Reagan would find him a disappointment. What did President Trump do with Ronald Reagan's task force, 1982? March 2020, the invisible enemy. They're draining the swamp right in front of everybody. They have drained it. And patriots and Republicans and conservatives of all people have not seen this. Can't see it, won't see it, because they're letting them little thick skulls get in the way. And the one time that all of you book smart people, hey, put a feather in your cap. You don't have to be a lawyer. You don't have to be a PhD. You don't have to have a master's. You don't even have to be a veteran to know what's going on. All you need is a Department of Education right between these ears. All you got to do is take this chronological order, read it, apply it. Knowledge is not power, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. It's the application of knowledge that's power. All right? So this is hilarious because, what's the title say again? Holding former government officials accountable for election interference. Ladies and gentlemen, remember why I kept saying over and over and over again, why would Biden, if Biden's president, why would Biden continue an election interference executive order with a national emergency 4 years in a row by President Trump? That makes no sense whatsoever. Now you have your evidence of why, oh, Derek looked like a conspiracy theorist and he looked so crazy, blah, 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 blah. I don't care if I look crazy because I'm right. And it's not about being right. It's about getting it right. But laws and orders that I didn't write or pass that are currently invoked prove that I'm right. It ain't about being right, but it proves that because it's all about the operation that's in place. Election interference. Executive Order 13848 with a national emergency that Biden continued 4 years in a row. Why? Why would he continue the very order that will damn his whole quote-unquote legacy, but even the real Biden of senator years? Why would Joe Biden continue an executive order that would damn his whole presidency if it was real? It wasn't, but if it would have been, why would he continue that order? That's the very thing about the community note bullcrap, an executive order with a national emergency, because President Trump put the national emergency with the executive order, and national emergency when you go read about national emergencies, if they are not continued in 2 years, they automatically terminate. Why did Biden continue it? Even one time. But he continued it 4 times? Election interference. The executive order by President Trump, September the 12th, 2018, 2 months before any election under President Trump, 2 years and 2 months before November 2020, President Trump signs an executive order and declares a national emergency for election interference. This was never about 2020 alone. Monday alone validated 98% of this whole special operation with these executive orders. The other executive order, and the last one I'm going to highlight right now, clarifying the military's role in protecting the territorial integrity of the United States. Territorial means Title 50. Territorial means national defense, our defense. President Trump having to put us in a defense mode in 2020 because COVID was a retaliation. And what did the CIA just put out in an article today that I posted? That the COVID, the virus, did come from a lab in China. Remember, we were all called conspiracy theorists and, oh, you people you were homophobic and you're phobic this and you're racist and you're this and you're that. Remember that? Remember all that bullshit in 2020? Remember that? Oh, I'm not forgetting that. I hope y'all don't either. Remember what we recall? Especially for, oh, you people, you talking about the Chinese people and blah, 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 blah. What did President Trump tell you on this past campaign trail? I'm going to hold the Chinese Communist Party responsible. It's all right here. So what's cool about this executive order is it tells you right here in Section 3, implementation, which means action, the Secretary of Defense shall, no later than 10 days from the effective date of this order, deliver to the President a revision. Revision means there's already a plan in place. I want a revision to the Unified Command Plan that assigns the United States Northern Command the mission to seal the borders and maintain the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and security of the United States by repelling forms of invasion, including unlawful mass migration, narcotics trafficking, human smuggling and trafficking, and other criminal activities. That's why terminology matters. A revision. So let's go back to 2020. Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550, put into place by the Congress and the President December the 20th, 2019, says specifically, in the first 180 days after December the 20th, 2019, and every 180 days thereafter, the President is to report to the Congress, the defense committees, the actions by the regular and irregular forces. Regular, yep, Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, Space Force, Marine Corps. Regular, armed forces, and irregular forces. Irregular forces, special operations, covert operations, clandestine operations, irregular warfare. Irregular warfare. See how that word ties in with irregular forces, irregular warfare? In the first 180 days after December the 20th, 2019, President Trump federalized the reserve components to active duty. Those orders are still in place, again, as we just went over. The counter-narcotics operation started. What does it say right here? Unlawful mass migration, narcotics trafficking, human smuggling and trafficking. There's your transnational, there's your Executive Order 13773 by President Trump. That's attached to the invisible enemy. That's attached to the Ronald Reagan 1982 invisible enemy. All these tie in. Then it says a level 3 planning requirement for U.S. September the 30th, 2025. That means every time the DPA was invoked or you saw an article saying that, the funds were appropriated on March the 2nd, 2020. Who was the president again? March 13th, 2020, President Trump declared a verbal national emergency via Proclamation 9994. Now, it's been terminated. Now, where Community Notes is wrong is it's saying that those executive orders 13912 and 13919 have been terminated because of that. They're separate. That's why they were written separately. Because we have executive orders with national emergencies attached. If President Trump wanted them attached, they would have been attached. They're not attached. That means they're still open. All right. March 13th, verbal. March 23rd, 2020, 4 days before President Trump federalized 1 million reserve components to active duty, and a little over a month since he gave the Secretary of Defense equal authority, a direct order to federalize the selected reserves to active duty with Executive Order 13919. March 23rd. How come there's an article about there's a secret plan to install a general just in case law breaks down? You know what that is? What have I been talking about? Writ of habeas corpus, the suspension clause. It's actually in the Constitution. We can pull that up really quick. I didn't have that plan, but let's see. The suspension clause. Let's pull that up real quick. Let's read it. If I can type. Article 1, Section 9, Clause 2. Real simple. Unless, it says, the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless when in cases of rebellion or invasion, the public safety may require it. Pretty sure that COVID, biological chemical weapon, and also the border, rebellion, invasion, the public safety may require it. This was perfect to invoke martial law, which is what took place. That's what a military government is martial law. And you have this article in between all of this. So in that first 180 days, you have this article about a general being installed just in case law breaks down by President Trump. Guess who that general was? General O'Shaughnessy from the Northern Command. I don't have to say anymore. I don't even have to say anymore. It says all it needs to say. That was March 23rd, 2020. A secret plan to install a general just in case the law breaks down. And January the 20th, 25, Monday, President Trump's new executive order, it don't invoke any titles because they already invoked a level 3 planning requirement for NORTHCOM, Northern Command, to seal the borders and maintain the sovereignty. Northern Command and Southern Command's already been invoked way back in 2020. It's all there. You just got to have the tools to be successful. It's all there. Special operations. All right. Now, the other thing that proves this is an operation, and I hate to use the word proof because no one ever, no veteran ever should have to use the word proof or facts. From the standpoint of when people say, show me the proof, show me the evidence. Well, it's the wrong terminology. You know, it shouldn't be called proof or evidence. This is straight up military laws, military orders, military regulations, military customs, and how they pair federally. There's only 4 ways. I've said this before. There's only 4 ways that federal law pairs with the military. 4. And they all, well, we'll use that as a punchline because you already know what I'm going to say if you've heard me before. 4 ways: executive orders, national emergencies, proclamations, and treaties. All 4 require presidential signatures and or declarations. So for the people that thought Joe was real, well, they'll find out later down the road. But for you patriots, for your validity checkpoint, another salute for you. I call it the validation salute. On January 19th, they showed Biden sign an executive order revoking sections of President Trump's Executive Order 13961 from December the 7th, 2020. Executive Order 13961 is called the Federal Mission Resilience Strategy. You know what that is? That's the continuity of operations of the executive branch. So if we weren't in the continuity of operations, what is Biden doing signing a revocation of President Trump's Executive Order 13961, which is called the Federal Mission Resilience Strategy, which is the continuity of operations for the executive branch? They prove it all day long, right in front of everybody. So it shows we're leaving the continuity of operations because Biden was a continuity of operation, but we're still in the operation of the military government and the military operation. And President Trump tells you that Memorial Day 2025 is the day we start celebrating. Why would we celebrate on Memorial Day? Think about it. We're honoring soldiers' lives for their sacrifice, all right, that have paid the ultimate sacrifice. That's what Memorial Day is for. I appreciate people when they text me on that day in another kind of manner, but I don't mean to be rude when I text back. Today's not about veterans. It's not Veterans Day. It's Memorial Day. We're to honor all the men and women who have given their life and or veterans who have passed on. That's their day. You're to go to a memorial grave somewhere, a veteran cemetery, or find a cemetery with veteran graves, put a flag on their grave, and if they already have a flag there, you are to go tell them thank you. Whether they can hear you or not, spiritually or whatever you believe, it doesn't matter. That's what that day is for. All right. One other tie-in really fast. Executive Order 13919, President Trump. One of his new executive orders. The cartel talks about the Western Hemisphere. There's that word I was talking about earlier. Do you sit around playing Rummy or Monopoly and you go, hey, how you doing over there in the Western Hemisphere? How's your tomatoes growing out there in that Western Hemisphere? How's your watermelons? How's your mama and them over there in that Western Hemisphere? Is that everyday language that you use, walk around talking to your buddies, your family, your friends, especially Southerners? I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you can't tell that I grew up in Vermont, obviously. But, I don't call up my buddy and say, hey, how's your mom and them over there in the Western Hemisphere? How's your tomatoes growing? Y'all seen any deer over there in the Western Hemisphere? Go look at Executive Order 13919, April the 30th, 2020, by President Donald John Trump. Western Hemisphere. You don't really need anything else. President Trump, his last few speeches, quote unquote, October 2024, those were no such thing. There's no such thing as a midterm rally, first off. All right, so there's that. But he heavily amped up his speeches October and the last few days of November, talking about we are an occupied country. We will soon no longer be an occupied country. The Great Liberation starts on November the 5th. And you've heard him mention Liberation Day was today, talking about Monday. Liberation Day, Liberation Day, Liberation. But you got to go back to those speeches. Don't forget the speeches. We're an occupied country. We will be an occupied country no longer. November the 5th, the Great Liberation starts. Then he said Monday, we're in the Liberation Day. He didn't say November the 5th was the day. He said that it starts that day. Then he told you in his speech, this is the great liberation. But go back to occupied country. There's another term. Do you walk around talking about occupied all the time? Occupied, Western Hemisphere, all these different terms. Do you say that in your everyday language? No, you don't. So then when you go to saying, do you say that in your everyday language? When you go over here and you go, okay, that's not my everyday language, so let's look at coincidences. What are the odds that the term occupied territory is in Chapter 11 of the Law of War Manual, and here's your president telling the whole world October 2024 and early days of November at Madison Square Garden that we're an occupied country, but we will be an occupied country no longer very soon. What are the odds that he's telling you a timestamp, he's forecasting, he's telling you occupied country is occupied territory in Chapter 11 of the Law of War Manual? What are the odds if you were going to Vegas and you say, hey, can you make me a parlay where President Trump is talking about the occupied country, which is Chapter 11 of the Law of War Manual, which is also the chapter military occupation. You want to argue with me? See, that's what you tell people. I want to argue with you. You're going to sit here and tell me that President Trump talks about a term 99% of Republicans have never heard in their life. Conservatives have never heard in their life. Occupied territory, Chapter 11 of the Law of War Manual. Military occupation, Chapter 11 of the Law of War Manual. It can't be argued. It's all military laws, military orders, military regulations, military customs, military traditions, paired with executive orders currently invoked and have been invoked. So, as I wrap up, I've already gone into the first 4 years was all this was operational, first off. This is an operation, all of it. You got to start somewhere. Everybody in life, every one of you watching knows if you're a podcaster, if you've written a book, if you started a company, whatever it is, especially if you've been successful, or even if you just love what you do without being super successful, you're still successful, whatever you define as success. But a lot of you know, you got to start somewhere. We can't just keep talking about draining the swamp, talking about it. Someone had to put, okay, here's our plan. Here's our goals, here's our war, here's the battles, here's the missions. See, that's where people lose terminology. I'm showing you the 40,000 foot view of the war. I can show you a lot of the battles that have already happened and the missions that it took to win the battle. That's going to help win the whole war. All right. But you got to be able to remove your emotions and your feelings and all this other stuff, no matter how old you are. It don't matter how old you are. This is not an experienced thing. This is a book smart, what's in place, what's invoked. And then there are visuals to show you that. So you don't have to be a doctor, attorney, lawyer, judge, whatever, veteran. You don't have to be any of that. But you got to know someone like me is a problem solver on the front. You don't want to find the regurgitators. You don't want to find those because all they're doing is regurgitating. A lot of them are regurgitating for ulterior motives, money, etc. Got to find someone like me who's a problem solver who's got it all on the front, who can deliver it to you. Then you get your solace and your peace and your comfort and yada, yada, yada. But you put President Trump in 4 years, the first 4 years. 95% of the battle up front was enforcing the laws and orders. I was just talking to a buddy of mine last night at a restaurant about that. He said, man, I can't believe I've lived all these years and I didn't know any of this took place. Just the simple stuff. And I said, look, it's okay. We're in a spoiled nation for a reason. The problem I have is when people deny straight up military laws, military orders, military customs, military regulations, and military traditions, and then how they pair federally. And then when you have invoking orders in place, and then you have the visuals of that daily around you, that's when I have a problem. Because you're disgracing every memorial grave across this land. And a lot of these people who do that are the same people who claim they support President Trump, some of them, most of them. The others, and depends on who they are, sifting those out, but a lot of them claim they support the military. You can't support the military without supporting military laws, military orders, military regulations, military customs, and military traditions. You just can't. That's pointless to say you support the military, but you don't want to listen to what's invoked by military first. Not federal. Some of it's federal. But if you're going to just think of the government, oh, the government screws us over. Not that government. We're talking about the good side. This is cleaning out the bad. And it's the first operation in history, and I hope it's the last. Because we should never get back to what the government looked like the past 150 years. And it's hard to believe it's lasted that long, but it has. It wasn't initially ugly at first, but it got that way. So you had to have a plan in place. President Trump told you Monday, this is a 9-year operation, but it's more probably like 20. He told you when he was asked to do this. And they're going to have revealed all this. This will be unveiled in history when the people are ready for it. This is all a plan. And he tells you when we're going to start celebrating. And then he says we're going to celebrate Memorial Day 2025 all the way to July 4th, 2026. And every single day, he said this in the press conference in California. Why is he talking about Memorial Day 2025 as a focal point in his press conference in California? Why is he talking about July the 4th, 2026 at his press conference in California? Why are all his speeches pretty much the same, except for he adds in what he needs to add where he's at? It's because they're proclamations. They're not speeches. Why is he still doing rallies? Why is he still doing speeches like he did in Vegas a day or two ago? Why is he doing this? He's already president, right? No, he's not. He is an operation. This is an operation. That's why there's no White House military office. That's why you can't find... Biden didn't have a White House military office. The last White House military office was Obama. That's what proves all this. So you got to have little things that draws people in. If they're still negative or still being whatever, you got to show, well, this is the operations and functions. How come there's not this, or how come there's not that? That's how you do it. And then you got to guilt them a little bit and say, do you love our military? Do you support our military at least? And they say yes. We go, well, you got to listen to this veteran. You got to listen to Jonhson. He's a veteran, and he's showing you what all veterans know by military laws, military orders, regulations, customs, traditions. There's that. All right. So you put President Trump in 4 years. He enforces the laws. I was just talking to my buddy, like I said last night, and then I was talking to my dad today about that. And I said, I told my buddy last night, I said, look, my dad's in his early 80s. He's lived a lot of life. He's an honorably discharged veteran. My dad loves this land. He loves his country. He loves President Trump. He's an honorable discharged veteran from the United States Air Force of the 60s. All right, whole different generation. And loves his country. Would fight for it just like that. If he was asked right now to go out, he would. He told me not long ago, he said, I can drive a tank. I can do something. Right? Even with where he's at in his 80s. All right? But even my dad, when this was first starting, I told him what's going on. I said, there's a secret military working behind the scenes. A lot of us. There's a lot of secret military working behind the scenes. And the way you know it is by the labor, by the fruits of your labors, like the Bible talks about your fruits, right? So there's a secret military working. All right, President Trump, everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing here, and here, and here, and here. But even Newsweek told you in 2017 there's 60,000 secret military, all tasked in clandestine, secret, meaning you're not going to see them. You're not going to recognize them. You average Americans are not going to recognize the secret military. You're not going to recognize it. All right, you're just going to tell certain things changing. All right, because you couldn't do this all at once and then dump it on the people. Everybody has to be brought to a level of accountability, responsibility, which requires transparency, and then it requires, like President Trump says, our retribution will come through success. So sometimes you just have to do things and then show people, clean it out, and then go, or maybe play something on TV that looks real, that's already taken place, but you think it's happening in a lifetime. However it takes, that's what's been taking place. So it's like I told my buddy, I said, look, it took me forever to tell my dad, because my dad's like, son, I'm 80-something years old, I'm 70-something, the time periods he was saying it. The laws and orders haven't been enforced in this land in all these years. That's correct. But new sheriff rolled into town November the, November the 8th, 2016. New sheriff rolled into town. But he was already in town, and you just didn't realize it. Even long before the escalator ride in 2015. He told you Monday, 20 years ago. Do your math, all right? That would put you around, what, 2005, 2004, 2005, 2006. Do your math. That was shortly after 9/11. What did President Trump just sign an executive order for? Releasing all the information on what? JFK files, Martin Luther King Jr. files, and Robert Kennedy. All right. But he also has a Supreme Court docket filed March 19, 2024. I've talked about it. It includes the assassination executive order 12333 by Ronald Reagan. But it stems from executive order 11905 by Gerald Ford, executive orders. That executive order 11905 talks about all the things that the three-letter agencies cannot do. Unconsented searches, physical searches, electronic searches. What all took place with President Trump? The raid on Mar-a-Lago, Russia, Ukraine phone call, all the things. That ties into Richard Nixon, Watergate. What are they doing? President Trump did put his hand on the Bible. What's that tell you? JFK didn't put his hand on the Bible. Who was assassinated by the deep state? What are the files already showing? George Herbert Walker Bush, who was Lyndon Johnson's CIA director, was a part of this. All of it. So everything's going back to at least JFK, because I don't think Americans can handle anything past JFK. You don't even really need anything past JFK. You're going to watch all this unfold right in front of you. All right, 9/11 ties in because of this docket case and the assassination, because of the question posed in the court docket. It specifically says, can a president order SEAL Team 6 to commit a murder? The last time SEAL Team 6 was involved in anything with the president and a direct order from the president, Obama. Ooh. Bin Laden. Who have they been releasing from Guantanamo Bay? They released a guy just a couple weeks ago who had no charge on his record. All these people were held from 9/11. All these Afghanis and different people that they held at Guantanamo Bay, no charge on their records. That's the same as all these prisoners that DNA proved they didn't do the crime and they spent their life in jail. I mean, can you imagine the chill bumps? Can you imagine sitting in a prison knowing you didn't commit a crime, knowing you're innocent, knowing someone framed you, knowing someone said, well, they're just a low-life scum, blah, 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 blah. Let's take them and put them in. Can you imagine sitting in prison knowing you didn't do a crime? Can you imagine when DNA proves that you didn't do it and you set free? Think of the life that you have left, sure. And then they give them millions of dollars, which don't pay for their life that they just lost. Can you imagine? I mean, I get chills thinking about that. Knowing when you know you're innocent and you're being framed and you go to prison for a crime you didn't do, and then DNA or you get set free, whatever. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Really think about that feeling you would have. Sure, you want to go live life, but I mean, come on. It's like the Shawshank Redemption. I mean, think about when you look out and you're like, oh my God, the world is passed you by. And then you got to get used to everything. Can you imagine? You put President Trump in 4 years, enforce the laws, never start a foreign war, clean up all the wars that these swamp people have done, mend all these relationships with foreign nations, etc., etc., etc. Find out where all the money's running. Find out all the banks that are attached to it. Find out all the names that are attached to it. It took time, ladies and gentlemen. And how they were going to do that, like my second book, the start of it, asked this one question. How do you drain the swamp effectively and efficiently from top to bottom? Draining the whole swamp, not just a little bit of it, draining the whole thing, but never starting a civil war, a civil disturbance, or anything of that nature, but also garnering the people's attention the correct way to get you involved. Whether you get mad or angry, bitter, upset, that's perfect, because you're involved. We got your attention. What do we got to do to get your attention? We got it. All right? But never firing a shot at the enemy and letting the enemy self-destruct. You trap them. How do you do that? Lawfully. You trap them. You enforce the laws on paper. Because no one could look at President Trump and say, you can't do that, President Trump. All President Trump had to do was, why did the Congress pass this in 1798? Why did the Congress pass this in 1823? Why did the Congress pass this in 1857? Why did the Congress pass this in 1878? Why did the Congress pass this in 1912? Why did the Congress pass this in 1947? Pick a year. All President Trump had to do was say, why did the Congress pass this? Why do you still have it on paper if I can't use it? Enforce the laws. Real simple. Then, because you couldn't tip off the enemy, they had to do it piece by piece. You pull President Trump back in a World War II tactic. It's already been done before, ladies and gentlemen. Government in exile. Huh. Wow. What's this little thing right here again? Special operations? What's the little booklet I tell everybody to go read? 2016 Unconventional Warfare Pocket Guide? Go look that up on Google. Title 50. Talks about Title 50. Alright? Special operations. It's got Executive Order 12333 in it. The assassinations order. It's got a diagram on page 11 that shows sabotage and terror to display the weakness of government. It shows assassination, forming favorable public opinion, advocating the national cause, exposing three-letter agencies. So you pull President Trump back in a government in exile. And what does 2016 Unconventional Warfare Pocket Guide have in it? Government in exile. In World War II, they formed government in exiles. They had other partner nations partner with us. And they put what they call puppet states up. And Philippines is the best one. Philippines had two presidents at one time. President Quezon came to D.C. with Roosevelt, and Roosevelt had full control of the Filipino military because of their geographical location, Philippines and Japan. Japan installed a president in the Philippines, but guess what he only had control of? Because the military was in control of Roosevelt and our forces. Civil affairs. Now, what was that insignia I talked about earlier that you saw around Biden? Military intelligence, Judge Advocate General, civil affairs, and psychological operations. You pull President Trump back lawfully, invoking a military government, military occupation, continuity of operations. That's what the three cannons at Arlington showed you. That's what the no commission up. That's why all the uniforms around Biden were jacked up, not regulation uniforms. Nothing you saw around quote unquote Biden. When he rode off into the sunset the other day, he didn't get a red carpet rollout on Air Force One. The camera didn't even go out there on the tarmac. It showed it from a distance. And he flew to California. And it didn't fly Sam call sign. Nothing. Why is Biden flying to California? Who lives in California? Actors. Who did President Trump highlight? At the inauguration at the Capital One Arena? Didn't he highlight John Voight? Didn't he highlight? What is James Woods doing being one of the highlight features? They all look just like Biden along the way. All these actors that look like Biden, all of a sudden being the two people that are being talked about at the inauguration. And old Biden don't fly to Delaware. Oh no, he flies to California. He can't make this stuff up. And this 4 years, you put President Trump back in, and now he gets to clean up without any kind of civil disturbance. He gets to clean up all the mess that Biden made without a civil disturbance. See, the key goal is to keep civil peace, to keep civil rest, and clean out all their crap, right? So it don't matter that people think that Biden was real. He wasn't. First off, he wasn't real. Laws and orders show that. And then laws and orders also show that he was never president. But right now, we're still in operation. All right? And like the Sam call sign with President Trump, the doomsday plane, the differentiator of that with Biden and the Sam call sign is the doomsday plane, is with President Trump. All right? Visual on the radar. Biden, like I said, you can see the Air Force One on radar, but the doomsday plane will be somewhere way over here. If they can show them both on radar, it's not a security risk because you're not getting around those aircraft in the first place, period, in real situations. The other one that shows and proves it the most is the one I talked about, the Executive Order 13823. Gitmo, Guantanamo Bay. All right. President Trump started talking about February 2016. For all of you who want justice, you're going to see justice. Give it time. Y'all got to let this have time. Time. This is an operation. You're going to see justice served, but it's got to be done lawfully. You will see justice served. President Trump's already told you that. It just takes time. But President Trump told you in February 2016, he was talking about Obama. He said, I heard he had a speech today. It's February 2016. Which, once again, you got to think about February 2016. Do your math. That means that Obama had 11 months left to be president. So think about it. He had a speech about shutting down the spa, Guantanamo Bay. President Trump said, we'll see about that, right? And that ain't going to happen. President Trump revoked Obama's executive order on January the 30th, 2018 with Executive Order 13823. He revoked a portion of Obama's 13492 that was to, quote-unquote, shut it down. All right. Well, how come Biden said in February 2021 and September 2021, Biden said, quote-unquote, that they were going to shut it down? Why did the administration make an emphasis? Biden administration wasn't real, but for the people that thinks it is, why did they put an emphasis that we're going to shut it down? If Biden was president, ladies and gentlemen, a lot more expensive pen than this cheap one from someone's events, services, and healing therapies. You saw President Trump, the first time in history that he's got in an arena for this massive audience and he's sitting there signing orders. Piece of paper and a pen. Done. Now, an executive order alone wouldn't shut down Guantanamo Bay. But because Obama put an executive order in place to shut it down, to get it started, and then President Trump revoked that executive order, which means his executive order 13823 is precedent and Guantanamo Bay is open still, then Biden would have had to revoke President Trump's executive order to shut that down, to put that in to go, all right, well, I revoke President Trump's 13823 with a new number. We are going to shut it down. How come Biden didn't do that? How come the Guantanamo planes, the admirals, are flying back and forth still from Florida to Guantanamo Bay? How come all the talk about all the prisoners leaving Guantanamo Bay are all of a sudden precedent and in the forefront for the American people? How come President Trump spent $500 million expanding Guantanamo Bay? How come there are more courtrooms at Guantanamo Bay? How come there's more room for prisoners at Guantanamo Bay? These are things that your average Republicans, conservatives, really need to focus on. Liberals, a guy like me or a person like me, you and your damn pronouns and all this other stuff, whatever, all that bullcrap, yada yada, whatever. I personally don't care how you live your life behind your closed doors. I personally don't care if you walking down the street in a restaurant, as long as you're not looking like some dog in heat, like some people do in California. You just got to hold hands and kiss all over each other when married couples don't do that. All right, the PDA. Y'all relax on some of that bullcrap. But personally, a guy like me, I don't care. You're not going to put it, we're not going to have it in federal. I don't think it should be in state government. But states have the authority to do that, people. But President Trump said we're taking the power out of D.C. and giving it back to the people. That's what's taking place. Me personally, you need someone like me who thinks like me, because if you're gay, Buddhist, atheist, whatever you are, I'll fight for you. I will fight for you. But it's going to be done the right way. Has to be done the right way. Now, I don't condone what you do, but I'm not going to let you get hurt for it or killed for it. I will make sure you're protected. That is the difference in the mentality. Now, I don't believe in gay, anything, whatever. Personally. That's my personal. You're not going to cram it down children's throat at the dang schools when they ain't going to have no drag this, drag that, none of that stuff. That's over. None of this stuff should have ever been put in federal. Where you liberals struggle is this. You want your cake, the icing, the candles, and everything to eat it too, but you don't want to give and take with what you call the weird side, which is the normal side, the conservative, but you don't want to give or take. You want it your way. Build a better society. You want it your way. You don't want to see eye to eye on all things. But federally, this is where it's a problem. Once you ever pass something on a federal, that means everybody has an opinion on it. All right, well, again, when the majority gets in place and the majority thinks like we think, then you're going to look like the ones who got participation trophies, which was what you're looking like right now. You were 14th place. You weren't even second or third, and you're crying about, I didn't get a trophy. That's what you look like right now. Ladies and gentlemen, we got to get back to, look, there's going to be a loser in a competition. When someone loses, you got to have the mentality that Alabama's coach, Bear Bryant, had years ago. You win with pride, you lose with pride. All right? You learn to lose the right way. All right? It ain't fun losing, but the whole point of the game is to win the game. But someone's got to be the loser. So you learn to deal with loss differently. And that's what we got away from in this nation, are the core values and functions of our nation. But then also, we started handing out participation trophies to everybody and anybody. And we're a land of immigrants. We are a land of immigrants. But the immigrants became civilians and bought into the way of life established by people who established it. So, I don't see anybody leaving. I don't see anybody that talks about, no, I don't see you leaving. Then you got the ones out there to take up for the Native Americans were here first, and if anything, you should be apologizing. I'm Native American. Now, I'm a lot more Irish than I am Native American, but I got Native American. I can prove it with the DNA. Now, I don't want to get a nickname by President Trump. I don't want to be called Sitting Bull or something like that, like old Elizabeth Warren got Pocahontas, because I don't have a lot of Native American, but I have Native American. So, we got to get back to common sense, which was why we're the party of common sense. But there's certain things that ain't going to be federal. There's certain things that don't need to be state. That's what you've been seeing iron out. And President Trump said that in one of his speeches just today or yesterday, whenever it was. I got to look at the dates. But he said we're emphasizing, we're getting the federal and state, their laws back in place. But states should have more power with certain things. And he's been putting a heavy emphasis on that. We got in trouble by putting too much stuff federally and then letting the wrong people have say-so when they didn't even know how. They can't even turn on a water faucet correctly. So we got to get back to that. We got to make sure we got the right people in place that have passion and a personality and who want to do this. There's a lot of Republicans out there still just blah, 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 just because I've been a Republican for 30 years. Woo, you want a participation trophy? Sounds like it. So we got a lot of people who just want to be a face and they want to be a name for the wrong reasons. If they don't have a personality like mine, even if it's not like mine, like that, but I'm saying if they don't have passion about this stuff, we don't want them in place. We don't want them there. Because when they become robotical and all they are is just, this right here, and they're not passionate about it all the time, like me, sleeping, eat. When I wake up, I'm reading what President Trump put into place because the rank system, the command, all right, I'm looking to see, okay, what ties in. It's real simple. Everything President Trump has done has been lawful, and it is so close to the foundation. It is a foundation. It's just the foundation of 2016 to 2025, as it was from the start of the Revolutionary War in 1775 to 1783. It's the same replica. It's all been done lawful by the core values and the functions of the military and federal, the right way federally, and how they pair. President Trump has done that to the T. And that's why, not because my book is my book, but because we have to account for this in history. We also have to make sure if you are Native Americans look 7 generations out, thinking about how you live your life now for 7 generations, preparing for them. If you'll take that mentality, everybody, and think about that, well, my books show what took place with President Trump and the generals, the military, etc. And then that way, those generations out there, they can't get out there and look back and say, well, this has never been done before. What do we do? Nope. It's already been done before. That's why it's important that I did what I did and follow the oath. And, well, first I'll follow God and then follow the oath, because my grandfathers and great uncles are what passed this down to me. Well, guess who passed it to them? Their grandfathers. It wasn't that long ago, ladies and gentlemen. My grandfather, if he was living today, one of them, he was born in 1912. All right, if he was 10 years old in 1922 and he met a man who was 100, that means he was born in 1822. It's not that long back to our foundation, ladies and gentlemen. It's not that far back. It's not at all. When I was about 7 years old, I met a man who was 105. So he'd have been born in the 1870s. Someone there? No. He'd have been born in the 1880s. Well, let's just say 1880 for simple math. Well, if he was 10 years old in 1890 and he met a man who was 100 years old, 1790? That's a year before the Bill of Rights were written. It's not that far back, ladies and gentlemen. It's really not. We lost this. We lost what we have in our foundation. We lost that 2 generations. I mean, it depends on where you want to call it the Lost. It depends on if you want to call 1871 the Lost, if you want to call 1878, you want to call it 1951 when Congress put term limits on the president. Wherever you want to slice the pie, we lost it very quickly. That's why you got to know this stuff daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. Be passionate about it. Love it. Love your nation. Love your foundation. Love the core values. Love all that. Keep it out of politics. Politics is politics for a reason. It became politics because it was all about this. You watching the swamp being drained. All right. So, 2 hours and 20 minutes. I try to make it as short as possible, but it's just impossible. Sometimes you cannot explain corruption so in depth in a short amount of time. You just can't. So, anyways, part 2 is available also on Amazon for all of you out there that are international. It's all available on Amazon, part 2. So Midnight Rider Rides Again, part 2. It's available. It's also available for me to sign for everybody on rattletrap1776.com. It's 600 and I think 10 pages final. All right, a lot of that are pictures. So if you talk about the price, it's $54 for a reason. I did it. I released it on Elvis's birthday, January the 8th, and Elvis made his debut on radio in 1954. So I always do things with some kind of good symbolic reason. And but it is 610 pages. It took a lot of time, a lot of editing, 12, 14-hour days, because you have to screenshot, email that on your iPhone, pull up your email, download, upload to the file, edit the size of it, get all that, then type about it. All right, it takes a lot of time to do that, ladies and gentlemen. So it takes a lot of time. All right, and I have to sacrifice a lot of time away from family and friends to do that. And then the print costs, because print companies have become so obsolete. We don't have newspapers anymore. Rare. We do have, obviously, magazines, a few. But because those have become so obsolete, it's hard to find a print company who can, print that for a decent cost. So, it's not as easy as people think. So, a lot of work went into that. And then also, because I was under a contract first, the goal was to get part 1 out as quick as possible in another manner for people's sake, to realize what's going on. We get emails a lot. My manager gets a lot of emails and texts and calls about people who are going to commit suicide until they heard me. So that means a lot, that we have a lot of people walking around who are living because they found solace and peace. I don't like the word hope. I do like it if it's in the right biblical term, faith, hope, and love, but most people have butchered that word. So solace and peace. So we put that book out quick. So part 2 really puts a heavy emphasis on the chronological timeline. I went into my whole chamber of things I'd saved from 2015, 2016, all the way up. Chronological. So it's a lot of photos and little excerpts of what you're looking at, reading. It's only like 107 pages of full-fledged reading. And I made the paragraphs real short. So it's not like long, chunky paragraphs. So I put that in the chronological. Of special operations, clandestine operations, covert operations, how President Trump, the generals pulled this off, and then little excerpts about Title 10 versus Title 50, where the average person can read it and comprehend it and study it. Use it as a study guide. And then, obviously, I don't like references in the back of the book personally. I hated that in school myself. I wanted the references to be right there where you didn't have to hold your place and flip to the back. I put all the references as you go. So you can literally put the book open, pull your laptop up, or put your book in your lap or on a table beside you, however you do it, and you can pull up the links, even though you can't click on them, obviously, because it's a book, physical book. But, we are going to make an audio book. We are going to do that. We are working on that. That takes time. I do have that in plans, though, because I do have some listeners. I actually have a deaf listener, so that's also cool in another kind of manner. Really cool. And I have some blind followers as well. So, we plan on doing a full audio book that way. But once again, the book right now is designed to where you can put it down and you can type that out. And once you type enough of those wacky characters that they have to do on URLs, it'll pull up. And you don't have to you don't have to type the full thing. You just click on it, and then it'll pull it up. All right, so there's that. Now, a lot of those links that were whitehouse.gov with quote-unquote Biden, they're not going to work anymore because it's gone, forever gone. All right, so, that happens in history with magazines and things that have shut down and other things like that. Certain colleges don't hold on to certain things after a certain amount of years, so that's just part of, dumping files and things. Not like Hillary deleted, but, like you do have to delete certain things eventually to house what you want to house because that's how technology works. All right, so part 1 and part 2 are also available in a bundle as well on Amazon.com, and then also, no, they're not on the bundle on there. You have to get them separately. So only bundle you can get. So you can get part 1 and part 2, I think, for $70, I think it is, on rattletrap1776.com. So I'm also going to be working on a new website. It's going to be the same URL, rattletrap1776.com, but I'm going to get it some more color put done to it. But right now, when you go to the site, you have to click on Get More Gear. When you click on Get More Gear, then it sends you over to the Shopify page where you find the books and other stuff, the shirts, etc., stuff like that, all those stuff I have up. So the dash, all the dash logos, all the dash matters has become my slogan. So I got that trademark. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, whenever you start selling something, like when you have, like this is my slogan. It's like a pun off of the Country Light song. So Cowboy Light. So whenever you start selling something, it's a trademark because all you got to prove is your proof of sales, your usage. So for future reference out there, for people out there that aren't trying to steal trademarks and stuff like that, like some people, all you got to do is have something and proof of your sales. And there are cases in history where someone in Maine had an idea that was the same as someone in California and they didn't know each other and they can prove that. And, as long as it's not like took off like federally, then you can still sell in Maine. If Maine don't interfere with California and California ain't but federally, since mine covers a lot of states, bingo, over said and done. All right, so the dash matters, even though I try not to infringe on anything with President Trump, the dash matters. You can get all that gear over there. So for all of you who are fully awake, it's a conversational piece. This is how you engage with people out there. They go, hey, the dash matters. Tell me about the dash. Got 'em. All right, that's how you do it. And if you can't tell them, then you just throw me under the bus. That's what I'm here for. You say, hey, I can't explain it like this guy can. It's his slogan, and he can be blah, blah, blah. Boom, bingo. Then it puts the pressure off of you. And then if they care and love this nation enough, and if they love President Trump enough, they'll come look, they'll come watch, they'll open their ears, they'll listen, and then they can appreciate and love this man even more for the sacrifice that he and his family have made to make this happen for every one of you out there. All right, and giving me the opportunity to serve again, and all of us veterans who are serving in other capacities outside of the actual Department of Defense in uniform. All right, so there's that. So my link tree, all of my social media accounts, very important because there's a lot of fake accounts. Lord help me, Lord help me. There's some accounts that have 40, 50, 60,000 followers. Fake. No telling what they're messaging those people. So, I could go after them legally, lawfully, but it would take forever. And then time you put out one fire, 10 more starting up somewhere. So the best thing to do is Linktree. LINKTR period. That's where the period goes. So if you're typing out on your URL or you're looking up link, LINKTR period, EE, backslash, not forward slash, backslash, 1776 nation. No spaces, no underscores there. 1776 nation. It pulls up all the links to my social media. I will post that in the comment box of Instagram, and then also, so Instagram, as you know, when it's live, the live comments disappear. So when I post a video, come back on and make your comments on there to show that you were here and you participated and whatnot. But you'll see me, the comment under there. Rumble. Everybody listen on Rumble. I only have one Rumble. All right, when I post this video on Rumble, there are so many fake accounts on Rumble too, and they're making money off of that. So what they'll do is screen record. They'll screen record me. So I'm going to say this at the same time. So they screen record me, all right, but I only have one account. When you go to Rumble and you type in the search bar, you type in Rattletrap, RATTLETRAP 1776. Enter. I'm only one account. So if you're following other Rumble accounts, you're putting a lot of money in the wrong people's pockets. The only place I've ever monetized videos is on Rumble. Don't make a lot at all because there's so many fraudulent accounts out there and people are watching all the frauds. All right. So Facebook, the way I'm going to find out that Facebook is actually following up with what they're saying that to the whole world, that they're not censoring people, is whenever I see all of the, see right now on my Facebook, when I go to it, it tells me that I can't monetize my videos because I've been censored. So when I see that that's removed, then we'll know that Facebook is not censoring anymore, because all I do is talk about laws and orders that are currently in place. So that is not something that, conspiracy or this, that, and other. Facebook have bylaws they have to go by. So they have federal and by. So, all I do is talk about laws and orders. So we'll know when Facebook really isn't censoring anymore is when they remove all the constraints on my pages. So they ain't done that yet. All right, so be careful who you follow. There's a lot of regurgitators right now because it's easy. Laws and orders, once they're known, once it's known what's going on, there's a lot of people out there, to a lot of people that didn't know, that's going to blow up to certain, oh man, this is brand new. Oh my God. No. And that's what's taking place right now with a few people, even on Instagram. Someone was tagging me on something earlier, and I'm like, they're all regurgitators, and I'm glad they're awake, but you got to put credit where it's due. You got to put credit where it's due. There's a few people out there, not just myself, there's a few others out there that knew certain things going on as well. You got to put credit where it's due, ladies and gentlemen. That's just how the world works. So you want to be careful with all this. You want to make sure you're following the right people. All right, because once again, a lot of ulterior motives out there, and when you're vulnerable, it gets dangerous. All right, so January the 20th, 2025 was salute to validation. Liberation equals validation. Validation equals liberation. But really, more importantly, it is. Your liberation equals validation. All right, so all you saw, all the executive orders, all this stuff's already been put in place, so it shows you that Biden did not revoke all these key orders. That alone proves this operation. For the people who thinks Biden was real, it proves everything. Everything. Because if he was president, he should have done what every other president did in the swamp the first 2 years. He should have revoked every single thing by President Trump. How come he didn't?